You're going to have to remind me, we talked recently about the after-death state. Was that a discourse or was that a satsang?
Discourse.
Okay. So, any questions about that information, since you didn't have a chance to ask any? There's about 22 people online, so some of you were at that discourse. It was very significant information, maybe confusing to some, so I want to make sure you have a chance to ask anything you would like, since in discourse you don't get to ask questions. Aiden, would you put more milk in that?
I didn't really have a question about the discourse, but I noticed right after the discourse I had a really strong reaction to it, like at a physical body level. I could see there's very powerful reaction to it. Don't know specifically what about. So I was like, let me go.
It's an intense subject.
Yeah. I've only observed that strong a reaction, like when I took discipleship, I had a really strong reaction. This is one of those similar occasions.
Also, you haven't thought much about death.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. Not proactively, no. No, it struck me once that I realized it was coming, and I realized it's inevitable.
Were you on a motorcycle at the time?
I did.
You were?
Yeah. Right.
Well, good. Then it had an impact.
Yeah. And took a day for that reaction to subside. And I realized you always say, just wait. These things only last so long. And
unfortunately, yeah.
Right. Also just been noticing
That's because we're very crass creatures. The more sensitive and refined we become, the more there's the chance that these temporary states can become part of a permanent better footing. More open, more receptive, more vulnerable, more connected. But usually they don't last long because we are what we are until we're better. When you're operating at a higher level, a better frequency, you absorb more in a more useful way. Like how your digestive system takes nutrients from the food we shove in our mouths. But most of us are on too crass a level to both have that process going on in a better way and the capacity to be aware of it.
Yeah, we were talking about eating in our MSC meeting. And on the day, Vishan and I were talking about it, and it just struck me that we often, it's only a few times when we're really hungry and we're actually aware of hunger and eating. from a sense.
Speak for yourself.
Okay. All right.
I'm always hungry.
Yeah.
And I have no trouble eating whether I'm hungry or not, so there's no problem.
Okay. Right.
Anyway, you were saying.
Yeah, we were just.
I'm just teasing you.
Yes. Just an experience of actually realizing, no, I don't really want to eat this. I mean, it's just a pattern that's eating it. I don't really need this. I don't. Just being much more aware, more conscious, and like the whole meeting just kind of went in a direction of awareness, which was very nice. I also wanted to report I've been observing my resistance to change, and I know you've said that it's inherent in us as humans as we resist change. But I think for the first time it kind of really struck me. I'm like, oh, I'm being resistant to change. It's change is knocking on the door, and I'm resisting it. Just an observation.
Good. So you're becoming more aware in more ways.
Yeah. The other day I had this this kind of minor issue at work, and so I was talking to the other ED who raised the concern, and I kind of let him talk, and he went on and on about his applications and his projects, and like 30 minutes into the conversation I realized the only reason this man was complaining is because he wanted love. He just wanted the interaction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was refusing to interact with him. And once I interacted with him, there was no problem. There was nothing. Even at every level, people that's all they want. And it just manifests in different ways. But they're just looking for love.
That's right.
It's just kind of...
Apparently awareness is growing in leaps and bounds.
But it blew my mind because I'm like, this guy's notorious for like complaining. And I'm like, he's not really complaining. He just wants me to talk to him.
Well, he is complaining, but there's a reason. Yeah. And the reason isn't what people think.
Right. It's like, yeah, I'm the one who's not talking to him. If I just open up and allow him to converse with me, that was it. It was just a request for love.
Mm-hmm. So even your enemy is requesting love. Not just complainers and whiners, even someone who is antagonistic, someone who decides to be your enemy, someone who purposely goes against you or shows hostility, even that is the same thing, except it's coming more in the form of a demand rather than a request. It's never interpreted that way, but that's why Jesus said, love your enemy. Why he could say it unhesitatingly, because he had the understanding that everything is all human interaction is a love request. Even murder. That's a very extreme, ineffective love request. But nevertheless, it is. I know that may sound to some ears extreme, but you have to look at these things very simply in terms of what's the really, truly deepest source motive. And it's always a request for love. So somebody at an ultimate level of consciousness understands very clearly that even even your worst enemy is trying to get your love. They have a really whacked out notion that they have to come battle you to get it, but nevertheless, that's what the battle is for. If I'm your enemy, I'm your enemy kingdom, and I conquer your kingdom, and now you're subjugated by me, I can force you to give your love. It's not a good version, but nevertheless, that's the best I can do if that's my approach. If my approach is hostile and aggressive, then the best I can do is try to force you. So, outside of spiritual circles, you'll never get people to accept that this might be accurate. But if you could, imagine if you could in political circles and governmental circles, if people understood this, imagine what a different set of circumstances would exist in the world. The only wars would be Nerf wars. Gleeful Nerf wars. But that's part of our crassness. That's part of our crudeness. Is even though it's obvious, we don't see it. And we're taught that there are all kinds of motives other than that. And we're not familiar, we're not in contact with our own request for love motives. So, we're aware of our other motives, our more confused motives, our baser motives, our more aggressive motives, our more greedy motives, our more selfish motives, our more even altruistic motives. We're aware of all kinds of motives other than we're seeking love, or wanting love, or requesting love. So it's hard to imagine or understand or accept that that may be the motive in others if we're not even aware that it's our motive. So whatever motives we're most aware of, that creates our universe. That creates our reality. Because that's what we'll imagine, that's what we'll project. The motives we're really intimately familiar with and aware of in ourselves, we'll spot those or imagine those in other people. If they're there in any form, we'll exaggerate it. And if it's not there, we'll imagine it is anyway. And what's missed in all that is the fact that everybody is simply trying to get love. Every which way. It's the only reason you get out of bed in the morning. It's the only reason you leave the house. But nobody looks at it this way. You're so familiar with your own obvious motives that you're well aware of that it's hard not to assume that that's what's motivating you, that that's what's moving you. But it's really not. It's the wanting love that's really moving you. So because we don't see it in ourselves, we miss it in others. And because we can't see it in others, we're not aware of it in ourselves. But now you've seen it, so that's a big leap. You must be eating your Wheaties.
Cheerios.
You must be eating your Cheerios. So that has to be pounced on. You have to fold that into your understanding in a big way, because that's a real profound awareness. To see that at all is a really big leap. To spontaneously be able to see that that's all it is, and that it's irrefutable. In other words, you can't say, don't do that, or that's not valid, or you should be doing something else. You can't fault someone for wanting love. So it's the basis of why the Buddhists stress compassion so much. Because everybody is the same. Everybody's just trying to get love. It's just everybody's doing it their own way, or the way they were taught.
Yeah. And it really helps to interact with other people once you can see what their base motives are.
It will make you an honorary Buddhist. It will make you more compassionate. And if you're really lucky, it will make you more aware of that motive in you. And it's one of the multiple reasons why we naturally resist change, because it's disorienting on that level. In other words, what's change? You're used to your ways of seeking love, requesting love, trying to steal love, demanding love. And change suggests unconsciously that you may not be able to do it some of those ways anymore. Whatever is changing may require other methods, and that's unsettling, because you're very used to, we're all used to our own way of seeking love. It's habitual. We only have a few basic approaches. Everybody has their own few basic approaches. But it's a beautiful way to understand the intricacies of human behavior. That no matter how perverted it is, no matter how nasty it is, no matter how awful it is, no matter how Hitlerish it is, it's still looking for love. Didn't I give a discourse on this subject in depth? I think, because that reminded me, I said something about even Hitler was just, World War II was Hitler looking for love. It rings a bell, doesn't it? I think I gave a whole discourse on this. So that's a profound understanding that I would really encourage you to make central to your understanding of yourself and others. Base human understanding of how humans work. And the vast majority of us are operating from an assumption or a feeling that we don't have enough yet. And even the rare few who feel that they've got plenty still want more. So the whole idea of resistance to change, there's many, many reasons why we're that way. So on this basic level of everybody is seeking love, that's a factor. But I want people to consider and understand that, to see the negativity in it, that the natural resistance to change represents a very basic negativity that we all have, that we all carry, until you forcefully change it. You see the negativity in it? It's based on the assumption that whatever the change brings will be less good than how it is now. that it's a loss somehow, that change is a loss. Change brings something worse, not something better. We assume unconsciously when change is sensed, we resist naturally because we assume unconsciously that we come out the loser. We come out with less, not more.
Mm-hmm.
You feel that in yourself?
Well, I definitely feel a sense of, okay, I know
I don't
this
mean
is
you, I mean everybody. I don't want you to be needlessly on the spot.
Okay.
Can you feel that in you? That when you think about it for a few seconds, that change, that we all have a very negative attitude toward change, and that negativity is based on a semi-conscious and usually unconscious vague sense that any change will bring something not as good as what's there now. What's there now may not be very good, but change will probably make it worse. Or what replaces it will be even less desirable. And that's the irony, is in the vast majority of the time, change is typically for the better. If you were able to categorize, measure every change, small and big, of any kind that's ever happened in your life, and you were able to divide them up into the good pile and the bad pile, the good pile would be gigantic and the bad pile would be small. Yet, we reflexively fear change because we have this base negativity about it that's going to bring something that's not as good as what's here now. It's really wackadoo. It's just a simple negativity. We just assume the worst with no basis for that, no data that suggests. All the data suggests the opposite, but we never look at the data. If you look at the data, which anyone can do, if you review your life from that angle, you will have to admit, if you do it honestly to yourself, you'll have to admit that most changes that you've experienced your whole life have represented an improvement in some way, even if just a little bit, but certainly not a loss. And the losses are glaring. When there is a loss, you know it. But that's a small proportion. We're very aware of the losses, of the negative changes, and we ignore all the positive changes. We just don't have the eyes to see it. Selective awareness. If you really saw it clearly and could see it clearly ongoing, if human beings were that way instead of reflexively shying away from it, everyone would be welcoming all change and begging for it, embracing it with open arms, dancing a jig every time they sense any change coming, because you would know that the chances are proportionately high that it'll be something better. At the very least, leads to something better down the road. And the unseen part, the metaphysical unseen part, is something better always means more love has reached you, or your ability for love has increased, one or the other. So these days people love to talk about positive, be positive, and have a positive attitude and positive thinking, but very few people understand the definition of positive. They think it means positive. It doesn't really mean positive. It means unconsciously, and on a deeper level, you feel there's more love in it. And generally, that's the furthest thing from your awareness, but that's what's going on. It feels to you positive because it feels like there's more love in it, but you're not aware of that at all. You're just aware of the surface sense of it's better, it's more positive. It's desirable. It feels good. It looks like a positive change. But if it looks to you like a positive change, on a deeper level, you've decided there's more love in it for me.
Yeah, I hadn't dotted that line.
And that's what gurus are for. Nobody dots those lines except gurus.
I was definitely aware that my love capacity is increased, but I didn't dot the line from change to love, as in that's an opportunity. Or
there's no topic for human beings that is unrelated to the subject of love. This is obviously not known by the world. But you can know it. Spiritual seekers are trying to know it. The rest of the world is busy with other things.
where does that negativity come from?
France. It's an import.
Okay.
Comes from not being raised with the correct information so that you are operating in the dark. Comes from ignorance. Ignorance is not a negative term. Ignorance means you're ignoring things or you're not aware of things. Ignorance doesn't mean you're not intelligent. Ignorance means you're ignorant of the facts. So because people are ignorant of the facts, it's easy to have a negative attitude or an unconscious negative approach, especially when you feel like not enough love is there for you. So we fall into it very easily, very simply, very naturally, because we're not raised, most of us aren't raised to trust, to honor life, to know the truth of the divine. So how are we going to not be negative if none of that is real for you yet? So once it's becoming real for you, you're still carrying all the negative base that you've been used to. It started with wrong information. The world's a difficult place. Sit up, eat your peas, stop that. Stop being a bad boy. Stop being a not nice girl. It's on the child level. But we continue it into adulthood. The child in us is still looking for love, and the child in us is confused. So none of this is wired up. None of this is intrinsic. It doesn't have to be this way. It's this way after millenniums and millenniums of wrong information, ignorant view of life, lack of knowledge of the reality of the divine. Or trivialization of it. So you can't really blame yourself. You weren't given the right information, and worse, you were given a whole bunch of wrong information. And the wrong information itself has a negative twist. Life is tough. Grab all you can, or be cautious, watch out, watch your back. People can't be trusted, or make sure you get your fair share. Has a negative bent to begin with. The worldly teaching is weighted toward the negative because it's ignorant of truth, God, and reality. It wants to control the facts for its own advantage and doesn't recognize that you can't control reality. You can't control what's absolute and what's always the case. So everybody starts at a disadvantage. Mistrained. Spiritual life is retraining. And retraining is always double-sided. You have to get more correct information, but at the same time you have to be shedding the wrong information that you've been taught. So it's a process not just of going forward, it's a process also of taking out the trash. Because you can't keep the wrong attitudes, the wrong reactions, the wrong understandings, and the false facts, and just add correct ones on top of it. You got to get rid of these things because their influence is powerful. And conditioned. Habitual, in other words. You operate on them without even being aware of it. That's why you have to address, that's why everyone has to address their conditioning and be in the process of deconditioning themselves. That's getting rid of the toxic training. You have to do both. You can't just do one. Some people think just getting rid of it is enough, that's removing barriers. But you also have to know the way forward. You have to start having eyes for the truth and ears for the divine. So that's going forward. And some people think you can just embrace the divine. You can just seek truth and everything will fall into place. Or the invalid teaching will just be washed away somehow. But it won't. You have to, by your effort, remove it. Overcome it, transcend it, and eject it. Get it out of your system like a virus. So this is the difficulty, why spiritual life is difficult, because it takes two big efforts at the same time. One effort doesn't seem so undoable, but two efforts, two gargantuan efforts, that seems like a lot to us. But that's how it has to be, because that's the way it is. Demolition always precedes construction. That's the Hindu conceptualization. First destruction, then something new, something better. But first demolition. Not first, you just build a nice palace next door to the shack. First, you raise the shack. And take the debris to the dump. So this is Hinduism 101. This is the entire basis of Hinduism. Is the three base forces. Create, maintain, destroy. But destroy comes first for human beings. Because we've always started with something. So the first action has to be destructive, not constructive. First action has to be get rid of what isn't benefiting you, isn't in service of what's real, before you can construct a better approach. But because of the nature of life, we kind of have to do both at the same time. We'll be addressing the 85,000 other deities in this week's discourse, which will be longer than usual. And Western people have fallen into association with the word destroy or destructive as it's a bad word. It's very negative. It means something bad is going on. And that's also unfortunate and represents a kind of an ignorance, ignoring that destruction is part of life and precedes construction. So it's not a negative word. As soon as you hear the word destructive, destroy, your ears right away ring in a negative way. And that's a shame, because it's a very positive word. It means the potential for something better. Getting rid of what isn't good enough to make room for something better. Getting rid of what's pulling you down so that you can rise up. The word destructive should have a positive connotation to human ears, but in our time, in our place, it doesn't. It's always the phoenix. It's always rising from the ashes. And life is emphasizing it to you all the time. Death is the conclusive clue. Even you will be destroyed. This body will be destroyed. This lifetime will be destroyed. That's supposed to be a clue that destruction is normal and natural and the way of things. But it's hard for people these days to understand that destruction precedes construction. Always. That's the way for the earthly level. That's even the theory of the origin of the universe, the Big Bang theory, a great big destruction, Big Bang. But these things are promulgated, and these things are theorized, and these things are said, and people don't hear the meaning behind it. Big Bang. They even say the universe started with Big Bang. Creation is, first step was Big Bang. That's first everything was destroyed, and then creation, then construction. Nobody gets the hint. It's a human theory, and they came up with it, and they still don't get the hint. They don't hear what they're saying. They don't hear the metaphysical meaning that they're expressing. I don't even subscribe to the Big Bang Theory. I think it's a projection. It's because every human being started with a Big Bang. So we think life started with a... Yeah. Somebody banged somebody. Or else you wouldn't be here. So then science unconsciously grabbed that. Well, all of life must have started with a Big Bang. The universe must have got created through a Big Bang. This is all played out in the Hindu pantheon. I don't know anything about Hinduism, Hindu pantheon. My knowledge is the same as any college-educated average person. Like, you know, I could write it out. It would be about a page. But I understand the metaphysics behind it. And that I can talk about endlessly.
Yeah, I observed you bringing me back to work on certain things. I'm like, man, I thought I was done with this. But then it was like, no, have the awareness. If he's bringing you back to this, then there's some work, some more work, for lack of a better word, to be done here. Something else needs to be cleared out.
No, it's even more positive, better news than that. That can be the case, but it's also the case that when you advance and when you've dealt with something and you're really done, you were effective, you were successful, then you get to approach it, and it moves you to a better level. You get to approach it from that level. In other words, it also exists on that level. So from a better perspective, you get to deal with it again, not because you didn't do good enough before, but you graduated to a better level where you get to deal with it in an even better way. So that's typical. There's certain core issues that every individual has that are their base issues, their favorites, you could say. And until it's literally all the way transcended, you just keep dealing with it at every level. But from a better position and in a more enriching way. That simply reflects the movement of life. The movement of life is just so simple. Everybody thinks it's complex. It's so simple. The movement of life is growth. Show me something that isn't growing if it's alive. Well, you can, and that's called dying. If it isn't growing, it's dying. So the movement of life is toward growth. The urge is toward growth. The direction, the tendency is toward growth. Everything that has life in it is required to grow, because that's the nature of life. To grow organically, to grow metaphysically, to grow spiritually, to grow in every which way. So growth always means expansion, and expansion and growth always mean moving closer toward love. So when we don't grow or try to hide from growth or refuse to grow, then life brings the problems of whatever level we're on and starts piling them on top of our head. In other words, if you're not growing the way life intends for you to grow, life gives you a push by making it more uncomfortable. And it makes it more uncomfortable by whatever your natural issues are, because every lifetime has its natural issues, whether it's karmic or just whatever's going on here. So life starts piling it on. In an effort, it's actually compassionate. It's not recognized as that. We don't feel it that way, but it's actually trying to spur you to grow. Come on, get going. So if you still refuse, then the burden of that gets heavy. Life bringing these things, sticking them right in your face, and you start to buckle, you start to fall, you start to disintegrate. It gets more difficult. But that's all in the service of getting you to follow the natural order of continuing to grow. Well, when you do grow, that's if you refuse or resist. If you don't resist and you naturally grow, you move to the next level. When you move to the next level, it doesn't mean you've graduated to a better set of issues or a better set of problems only. You have. It also means you get to have the opportunity to finish even more with the previous issues, the previous problems, in a more effective way. So it's not a punishment, in other words. It's not the terribleness of life. It's the opportunity for more of your potential to be engaged and to rise higher, 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 so that the problems become way better problems. But all along the way, you're tying off, you have the opportunity to tie off the problems of previous levels. And you kind of have to do that, or else you get pulled back, at least to some degree. You got to get both feet out of the lower levels and more firmly in the advanced position. So when we drag our feet, we're really making it hard on ourselves. Life demands that you grow. It's that simple. It's the natural movement of life. So what's growth? Change. What do we do with change? Resist. So we have to do better, because it's all advantageous. And we childishly expect it to be painless, and it never is. Growing pains are growing pains. That's why that phrase is accepted in every culture, growing pains. Everybody knows growing pains exists, but we forget it when we're growing. We kind of insist, no, it should be comfortable and painless, but seeds don't sprout without breaking. Breaking is always painful. So that's good pain, necessary pain, simply the pain of moving forward, simply the pain of growing. It's not a carefree, painless process. But it's not against you either. It's for you. Again, it's even mirrored in how you got here. Ask your mother. First the Big Bang, then the birth pain for mother and child. And what are you expecting the rest to be? But the pain is minor compared to the potential of the joy of it and the what's reachable, where you can get to. So it's a small price, but we whine and moan like it's a big price. But in the proper perspective, it's a small price to pay. A little bit of pain for a great big bunch of joy and the fulfillment of life. We really are very greedy. We want total fulfillment and no pain at all as part of the price. Even a little bit. And that's what the proportion is, exactly that. A little bit of pain for a whole lot of fulfillment. If we could see that more clearly, we wouldn't object so much. So when we resist change, we're resisting the natural urge toward growth. Change and growth are not synonymous, but they almost are.
What's the difference?
One is growth and one is change. They're not always the same. Mm-hmm. But they usually are. Not always, but usually. The difference is you can have change without growth, but you can't have growth without change. Mm-hmm. But usually, if you have change, it is growth. You can have change without growth, change that isn't growth, that exists. But usually, if it's change, it's growth. And if it isn't growth, and it's change, usually it's loss, which is just the other side of the cycle.
Destruction.
Yeah. Ebb and flow. Any other questions? Yogi Raj.
So I know you talked about for the death thing with expanding the awareness more in life, and I forgot what the other one was, vulnerability, or there was one more. But I guess I'm asking from, I guess I know that, but if there's something else to more and more practice, like I guess what I also call the art of dying more now, so that when death comes, it's not, the intensity can be handled better. Because I've had split-second moments of feeling an intensity that I just cannot, in instant like what you said, recoil.
So try harder not to recoil. That's the practice.
It's just try harder.
Yeah. Gather yourself in those split seconds and try your best to not recoil. You'll fail, but the practice will be good.
Okay. But I mean, those hardly happen. But I mean, generally in life, you know, it comes in different ways. The fear of death in this most trivial act. Like I remember you saying, all fear is the fear of death. I guess it's the same thing then.
Death isn't something that happens in the future. Death and life aren't separate. Life is going, you're very aware that life is going on right now. What you're less aware of, I don't mean just you, everybody, all of us, what we're less aware of is that death is going on right now. That they're not two poles on a continuum. That death and life can't be separated. It's one thing. So Osho is saying, since that's true, find it now. Find the death in this moment. You're very oriented due to training. You're oriented to naturally be aware of the life in this moment. He's saying, can you, as a discovery, as an experiment, look for the death in this moment? Because you haven't been told about that. You've only been told about the life. Once again, you've received a partial training, and therefore a false training, because if half is left out, it's not a valid understanding. So your eyes can see the life, your ears can hear the life, your attention and your seeing has no problem with seeing the alive part, the living part. It's not trained to see the dying part. Because wherever there's living, there's dying. And wherever there's dying, there's living. That's the whole purpose of pranayama practice. The in-breath is life, the out-breath is death. So in a single breath, you can find death. So if you look around, there's nowhere you can't find it, but you have to start training yourself, in essence. That's what all these practices are, to be able to be aware of it, because you've been made hyper aware of the life, the living part, and you're encouraged to not be aware of the dying part. But living and dying are in every moment, and in every action, and in every set of circumstances. Destruction and construction go together.
Is it also like a mislabeling? Like if a thought comes up, in a certain sense it was born, and when it goes away it's now dead?
Exactly. That's another. Everything represents the life and death motion, the life and death cycle, the ebb and flow of everything. There's nothing that doesn't move in that way, no matter how differently it moves on other levels or from other perspectives. You can always find that motion. That's the base motion for existence. That's what that whole discourse 3 weeks ago was about, ebb and flow. That's the base motion for all life, all creation, everything that is, everything we can be aware of, in whatever else ways that it moves, it always still moves in that way. The base motion is ebb and flow. Today we're talking about it as destruction, construction. Same thing. life, death. It's in every moment, it's in every breath, it's in every thought, it's in every feeling, it's in every perception. So when Osho encourages you to find the death part, the dying part, become aware of the dying process, the process of death, he's encouraging you to go deeper into life. Because if you start being aware of the death process every moment, you'll be more aware on a deeper level, you'll see it in a bigger way, the life process, because they're not separate. But we've been taught, all of us, to only look at half of the picture. He's just saying, and that is the tantric understanding, he's just saying, look at the whole picture. You're really good at looking at half, so forget about that. You don't need to do anything with that. You've got that down pat. Look at the other half, the part that they told you never to look at. Does that help?
Yeah, a lot. Thank you. That reminds me a lot of the time, because earlier I would feel the heart a lot. So I was used to just, if I sat or I'm just, aware of something, I'd direct the attention there. But ever since I took sannyas with Osho, it always goes to the hara. It just drops. Sometimes I try going there and it just falls back down to just whenever I experience any rising, it just stops there. So I don't try to make anything of it because I don't know, but I've noticed that it just always stops there.
Well, what to make of it is be glad. That's a more profound level. That's a more advantageous position.
Yeah, I just feel the region more. That's all.
The heart is not the goal. It's a temporary goal. It's a destination on the way to being. Mind, heart, being. Hara point represents the being level. If you're trying to grow your being, you'll never be successful unless you can be in your heart, unless you can use heart energy. But you're not trying, everybody needs to be trying to get more to their heart, but the purpose isn't so you can live there. It's a journey, it's a road, and it's the road to being, the being level, the essential level, the essence of you, the essence of your consciousness, the essence of divine consciousness. So it's a way station. It's a very enjoyable way station, and that's why people end up constructing a home there, but it's not meant to be where you land, it's meant to be on the way to. And it's not that you abandon the heart or you leave, it gets subsumed. Being includes the mind and the heart and everything else. Because of the way we view a human body, mind, heart, being, we have that conceptualization of it. A better, more accurate conceptualization is reverse it. Being is the highest level. Being is the deepest level. It's not, because of the construction of the human body and how we view it, it's seen as, it's here, it's the hara, it's the midpoint. But that suggests to the human mind lower, and lower always suggests less than. So you have to reverse it for your understanding. It's the highest level.
Yeah.
So it includes the mind and the heart. You rise from the mind to the heart. You rise from the heart to the being. You rise from the being to the universal divine.
Mm.
But it's metaphorically upside down in the human conceptualization.
And I was aware of that also, but I felt, I guess it's more of a mental thing that I was just wondering how I suddenly got awareness there, because I guess mentally I felt that the heart wasn't open enough or something.
You
So
are,
how?
no, you already said, you said it. You said it yourself. After I took discipleship with Osho. So it's Osho's grace.
Mhm.
Took you immediately to the highest level. Made that accessible to you. Grace of the Guru.
Okay, yeah.
So, again, in the interest of simplicity, the mind is death, the heart is life, being is the universal, and beyond that is the divine.
Mm.
And all of them are one and the same. Go figure.
Thank you.
Kokoro.
I was really quite disturbed by the discourse, and I felt a little angry too. But at first I want to report that from that discourse, I saw like just trillions of people who didn't have my awareness, and I didn't feel, yay, I have my awareness. I felt like such sadness, profound sadness, and then I felt such compassion for just everyone, and I wasn't intolerant. I wasn't agitated like I normally am of human beings. I was just like, I see something different, like having patience with a child, or having an understanding that, I mean, it's so hard to get to awareness if you're so embedded in conditioning. I mean, and being here in Central America, I mean, it feels like they're so enclosed in their world. I mean, I walk down the street, I mean, this has happened to me in the States, but I walk down the street and it's like they've never seen anyone like me. And probably...
They've never seen anyone wearing glasses?
No, they've never seen a bald-headed black woman. And I'm also really muscular, so sometimes they think I'm a gay boy or a gay man, and that doesn't bother me. No, more that bothers me is I see how there's no sophistication, there's not a good sense of what a human being can look like, or speak like, or be like. And I don't think it's unique to here. I mean, I'm not saying that, but through that understanding, I could see how I can't judge anyone for what they think or what they do or any of those things. And as a part of my report, I also fell back into my kind of loneliness, my kind of not being understood, my kind of like, can I be the only one walking this earth looking this way? And like, they've never seen anyone like me. But then I reminded myself that that's not real, because I'm not really my body, right? So, and I also felt more compassion because I said, well, if I'm in their shoes, if I am that person that is looking at me, there could easily be a misunderstanding, because just you don't have anything to relate it to or compare it to. You just never seen it.
It's
just walking in China or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's just provincialism.
Exactly.
And provincialism is the way of the world. Even sophisticated areas and sophisticated people are just indulging a different brand of provincialism.
Exactly, and I didn't see that as a rich or poor thing, or educated or not educated thing. I just totally saw that as exactly what you're saying, as a cultural thing. But I also understood that it kind of is a way to spirituality, is to come out of that provincialism. Because if you don't, you have such a narrow view of what you can be or who you are, or I'm not sure exactly how to say it, but I wrote down some stuff to like get up. I was on the bus coming from Granada, and there was this man sitting with his son. His son was so beautiful. He was like 5. He's so sweet. And I'm talking to him and relating to the man. And then when we finally got off the bus here in Managua, they let you off like in the middle of the street, but there's like cars flying everywhere. So you get off the bus like on a little island in the middle of the street, and you're trying to get across like 4 lanes of traffic, and they're all like flying. So I proceeded to run, and he grabbed me to keep me from going into the street. And it struck me that this man, he doesn't know me, but he just showed me love. And it made me feel more optimistic about being able to see love in a way. Yes, you see it, I know it exists in me. I know that immediately I felt loving towards a child and man. It was just or anyone of us really, but it wasn't like that was the mystery. But I think sometimes we're so caught up with what we're doing on a day-to-day basis that it doesn't even occur to you to keep someone else from walking into a car, even though it would innately be you, but you get kind of detached from that, like, feeling you have inside. Like, if you see someone laying on the ground, people just keep walking, but it's like, I'd stop, I'm like, is he dead? You know what I mean? Try to, like, shake the person a little bit, or, like, try to talk to them, because I'm like, it's a human being laying on the floor, you just can't walk by. But we get so used to detaching ourselves from maybe what would innately be our connection to another person. But the discourse I found very disturbing, because I feel
so it was a good disturbance.
It was a good.
It was a good disturbance.
It was, but I was also really pissed off, thinking, and this is, I know, it has to be growth in me, but I'm thinking, here I am, I'm sticking around, because I'm pretty much disinterested in the world around me, even though there are these other positive things, but I'm sticking around because I want to get to know God. And then you're telling me that if I don't get to that point, I'm going to be stuck in my consciousness. And I was like, I'm feeling like, am I playing a game, or what's going on? It's like, I didn't ask for life, or at least I think
yeah,
I
you
asked
are.
for life,
You're playing a cosmic game on a cosmic scale for cosmic stakes. Absolutely, and it's the only game in town.
But then, what's the purpose? Maybe it doesn't have to have a purpose, but I don't understand. Like, okay, so I see the divine as
the purpose is to get to the end of the game. What's the purpose of any game? To get to the end and to enjoy it while you're playing, and then the game is over.
But you have all these people who don't have awareness, and they're just going to be stuck.
No, they're in the same game. Everybody moves on in their own time. You can study the checkerboard forever, but eventually you're going to have to make a move. King me.
So maybe you can explain to me. So,
But what I want to explain to you is that disturbance always, for us human beings, has a negative connotation, a negative association. We prefer to be not disturbed. But what I want to explain to you...
No, I don't mind being disturbed.
Well, that's what I want to explain. Remember that in the spiritual context, in the context of growth, disturbance can be good. How do you move forward without disturbance? You can't. And that's good disturbance. So if the discourse disturbed you, I'm glad to hear it. It's a good disturbance. You gave a whole report about compassion and love and human relating. After you said I was disturbed, you gave this positive report. It's you saying it was a positive disturbance, a good disturbance.
Right. So I didn't mind the disturbance. I just am confused.
But I want everybody to hear that you should expect to be disturbed. If I'm not disturbing you, I'm not a very effective guru. If I'm not disturbing you, then not enough is happening. It's absolutely necessary to disturb you, to dislodge you, to get you to accept the retraining you have to do with yourself and the advanced movement you have to do for yourself. And that's disturbing.
Right.
The guru, who doesn't disturb you is not helping you.
Right. But what's more disturbing is that why would life be created to play this game? Like, that is more disturbing than anything else you say, because I can accept that I might be stuck in my consciousness until at some point something changes, and the whole thing about change and all that. I mean, I get all that. That's not a problem. Because here it is, life is a gift, it's profound, right? I mean, it's mysterious, we don't know what the hell's going on, how we got here, we're just here. But to me, making it a game is like diminishing the profoundness of it, the beauty of it. It's like, do I really need to play this game? I mean, because I'd really rather be sleeping, like, perpetually. You know what I mean? Like, I think of game as like something manipulative, something a waste of my time. You know, like, I know it's probably my own conditioning about what a game is, but that is really disturbing to me. I don't understand that.
It's disturbing.
I don't understand the point of that.
It's disturbing to everyone, and everyone wrestles with the point of it. But the alternative is worse. You could be in France. I am here to be in the bliss of love. I don't care about the suffering and all that stuff that comes along with it. And I am here because I do want to understand who I am with the divine. I am compelled to that. I can't even deny it in myself. It is so, it's just like a rope pulling me. I couldn't even stop it if I really wanted to. But so
then,
stop. If that's true, then you're required to accept the game. It's either that or move to France.
So it's a game. That's just, I mean, is there another word you could use maybe to help me?
No, that's the perfect word. Just add the adjective, cosmic game. Cosmic game. Divine game. Universal game. Grand game. Ultimate game. Profound game.
But when you say game, it means you can lose.
No, when you say game, you're saying you can enjoy it. That it's not serious. That it's not work.
Okay.
That you can approach it as play rather than work. That's what game. Game means you're playing. Now, most of us have been profoundly taught to experience life as work. The spiritual way is to start experiencing it as play. Cosmic play. That's also basic Hinduism. And I don't even like
So I should be less serious.
The worst thing for me is a French Hindu.
What's with the French thing? By the way, where I'm staying.
It's very
Most of the people are
it's very simple. I hate the French.
Oh, well, I can't relate to that, but I respect your feeling.
I like their kissing.
Oh, I know you like the food.
And I'm not a fan of the people, that's all.
Okay, I got you.
I'm a simple guy.
But you like the food.
Not the food they have these days, no. The food in France has gone so far downhill that
Really?
you can't, it's hard to get a good meal in France these days for under $100.
Well, I'm sure it hasn't been
And vegetables have disappeared.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's a shame.
Basically all of Europe, vegetables have disappeared. You know, I had a 45-year break between visits. The first visit, the food was great, and vegetables were everywhere. 45 years later, the food sucks, and there's no vegetables to be found, except Campbell's soup, vegetable soup. I actually, in a restaurant, asked for vegetables. Do you have any vegetables? And they said vegetable soup. And I asked, well, what kind of vegetable soup? And they said Campbell's.
No way.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
That was in Brussels.
Wow. Well, the last time I've been to Europe...
And Brussels is just France light. You know?
You're right, it is. Okay, well, I'll have to accept the game thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
So the message.
it is what it is.
So the message is, lighten up. It's a game. It's for play. It's for fun. Have more fun. Enjoy.
And that is definitely a
more.
good message for me because I'm not fun oriented at the moment. I'm very serious.
We hadn't noticed. Good you told us because we hadn't noticed.
It's good. It feels good to laugh. But that is the second very important message. I definitely need to be more in touch with having fun. I only do it for my son, and I think I'm faking it, quite frankly. But absolutely, I hear that message. You're right. I do need to have more fun.
Definitely have more fun, and then you die.
And that I don't mind at all. I mean, I don't
make a joke here.
Death. What? I'm actually quite fascinated with death, so it's never been like, oh, what did that think of me? But I definitely, since I lost my...
Start having fun with death.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, anything, whatever it is, find the fun of it.
I'm going to work on it.
Find the
moment right now, I can't think of one thing that's fun, like not one thing right now. But anyway,
that was just too good to not end there.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay. Grazie.